Meeting to order. You have a copy of the minutes. If there's any additions or corrections, if not, I'll entertain a motion to be approved.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Mr. Livingston, all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. You have a copy of the transfers. Any questions on those? Not, entertain a motion they be approved.
Motion.
Mr. Livingston? You, all in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. You have a copy of the bills plus those hand checks. Any questions on those?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Get that? All in favor?
Judge, I'm going to recuse myself from any Parks and Rec that may be in there, please.
We got you. That was unanimous. We need to note in the minutes that the clerk fees were paid in the amount of $116,246.70. Sheriff fees, $631,602.66. That needs to be noted in the minutes. And then Mr. Covington, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Johnson, myself, and Mr. Parker have completed their training units and have received their stipend for that. That needs to be noted in the minutes.
You know, some reach that threshold in February and others reach that threshold in December. I'm glad some are already there.
We made it. Mr. Jack Connor is here for KBI incentive resolution, and I'll ask him to introduce his guest.
Will do. Thank you. Jack Connor, representing both the Chamber and Scott County United on a project which I think Mr. Williams has given you a copy of a proposed resolution for this is a KBI, Kentucky Business Investment Incentive Program concerning ICI LLC. And the ICI, John T., we were just talking about, doesn't stand, it's just a brand name, but this is formerly the company, manufacturing company that was called Industrial Concepts, located at Supply Court at Lanes Run Business Park. Before I go any further with a handout that you have and talk about the resolution and the incentive, let me introduce to you Scott McElmurray. Scott is General Manager and Vice President of ICI LLC. I've asked Scott to give you a brief description of the business and what they are planning to do for the future. Mr. McElmurray.
Good morning. So as Jack had mentioned, my name's Scott McElmurray. I'm the Vice President and General Manager for ICI. Again, formerly Industrial Concepts Incorporated at 106 Supply Court in Georgetown. And we're a automation solutions provider, so we build equipment for the automation industry. I do a lot of work with Toyota. Real excited about this expansion. We were purchased last December by Heartland Automation Solutions out of Michigan. And they're now the parent company for us, and we're real excited about what we're doing with this expansion, mainly because it's going to give us more manufacturing space, create more jobs for the area. And we believe in our strategy moving forward is that this will end up being the headquarters for our automation solutions team of the company. There's other businesses within the Heartland family. We're the automation division, and from all indications, this will be the hub, and probably have some relocation from folks out of Michigan here as well. So we're real excited about this plan. Thank you.
You have in front of you both the drawings that were done concerning the exterior of the building under Lanes Run Business Park. We have some stricter criteria as it relates to design, so you can see what Scott and ICI are going to do to the front. You also have a copy of the proposed expansion of the actual facility, a new I certainly don't like the word factory, a new manufacturing area. They're going to completely refurbish the office space, and there'll be an area on the north side for some additional work too. So you see the expansion, also the parking area. So this does fit extremely well with our highest priority as far as economic and industrial development is concerned, is to take an existing manufacturer and have them expand. What I hope you really heard also from Scott was it's just not about just the immediate job creation and the immediate expansion, but it is also looking forward. So the vision, I like that in terms of the corporate headquarters. And let me also point out to you, whether you know or do not know, ICI LLC also has a facility in Indiana. So this was a part of a process that they went through internally to determine, do we need to do it here, or do we in fact need to do it somewhere else? So they actually chose Georgetown, Scott County for this expansion. A little bit more detail about the the resolution itself, but when I said that there was a change in the name, there was an initial KBI application for incentives that was approved by the Cabinet for Economic Development, or the KITFA, Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority, 2 years ago. That application that was approved was for 10 jobs and for a little over $600,000 of investment. What we're now talking about, we amended that application, not in terms of the name, but we amended that also as it relates to job creation and capital investment. The job creation went from 10 to 29, and the capital investment went from $600,000 to $1.325 million expansion. So that's also very, very positive. So we're here to ask for your concurrence for a incentive under KBI. But I also thought it was extremely important, I'll move away from the mic, to give you a sheet that we prepared that gives you a better understanding of the process, because the process for the incentive programs have changed significantly in the last 2 years. So if I may, let me give you a copy of that. I'll briefly explain it. I got to thinking this morning, I probably should have numbered this on the far left, but anyway. So this is KBI through the Cabinet for Economic Development. So the initial client meeting, as an example, Scott and their folks called us out a couple of years ago. The prior owners, we met, talked about it with the Economic Development Cabinet. Marlene Duffy was over, talked about where we need to go with the incentives. So that was the first thing. From your perspective, both from the court's perspective and from the city council, when in case the incentive applies to both, in this case it's in the city, so the city and the county are applicable to the incentive. Local support letters are drafted and submitted to the cabinet for what's called preliminary approval for KITFA. That's what happens, that's that first step. If the KITFA board approves it, which is down about halfway, then in fact I do go to the KITFA board meetings to make sure there's any questions. Then they approve it, which they did. Company name, job creation, payroll, and incentives are disclosed to the public, and that's all. So then we move on down the process. The next one, part of final approval, which can be up to 2 years, Scott County United, myself, and the client, Scott with ICI, then make a formal presentation to both parties if both are done. As an example, if this was Aichi Forge, we'd only be to the court. So here we are today asking for final approval of the application. This is final approval. This is what the resolution you'll hear. And there's more steps to come, folks. Then the next thing is final approval for KITFA, and then the next one is the activation. The activation means that the company can say to the KITFA and to the cabinet, we now want to activate the incentives, which means the 29 jobs as they go forward for the employment of the 29 jobs, and the incentives from the 0.5% from the city and the county, as well as the corporate income tax credits and the credits from the state of Kentucky, you activate those. You begin taking your credits, your incentives off of that. So, ICI, LLC, has been, in fact, employing individuals. You're receiving the occupational tax as the city over some of those employees, but we're not doing the incentive until you approve the resolution, KITFA approves it, and then they choose within 2 years to activate. And I thought having this little sheet here made some help in terms of understanding the changes, because this isn't the way it used to be under KITA. I'm sorry, I hate those, anyway, they're all acronyms to me, under KITA. So, that's where we are today. We're asking for your approval of the resolution. As I said with Glenn, somebody I guess is going to read that, and all it does is it implements the second component, which is the final approval for the incentive program, and I think and hope that either Scott or I can answer any questions.
I guess we're ready for the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Before we actually get to the resolution, I had a question or two for Jack and Scott. The incentives that will be used in this case apply only to the new jobs.
Thank
Is
you.
that correct?
Thank you. I meant to make that mention. They're only related to the 29 jobs that they have committed. This has nothing to do with the existing employment. Yes, sir, you're absolutely correct. Thank you.
Key point.
Yes, sir.
Also,
Very important.
I've always been curious when incentives have been used about the verification process, and I'm pleased to see that that's the final entry in the process.
Yes, sir.
And that 90 days prior to the end of each fiscal year, the company submits verification.
Absolutely.
To whom do they submit that verification?
Cabinet and to the
cabinet.
revenue department, because there has to be a relationship between the State Revenue Commission and the Economic Development Cabinet, because obviously the credits come back to the state of Kentucky as well as to our local occupational Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission. So there's a lot of intertwining, intermingling now of making sure that they're doing what they said they would do.
So the making sure that all of the company's obligations in terms of the incentive package,
Yes, sir.
there's a process that we know all
Absolutely.
that is being taken
Yes,
care
sir.
of. And
They, by the
Scott,
way, have a right at some point in time, they actually can amend this, which is what we would hope as we go down the process here. Perhaps they may want to amend at some point in time and maybe do another KBI or amend the process as they go, so.
and looking at
Which we
your,
did once.
looking at your site plan, there may be room for another expansion.
There's a phase 2 and 3 plan.
Good.
Don't you love how people think ahead?
Just,
They
just
actually-
not to assume anything, but I noticed there is room for you to do that.
They actually closed on the land yesterday, so that's all taken care of. With your permission and approval today, hopefully they'll break ground relatively soon.
Jack, the thing that pleases me the most about a presentation of this type is too often we focus all of our economic development efforts on bringing in outside companies to the community, when the primary emphasis of our economic development needs to be taking care of our existing businesses and manufacturers. So,
That's all right.
Scott, I congratulate you on this, and I think it's exactly what we want to achieve in terms of maintaining job growth around here.
Glenn, if you'll read the resolution, then we'll have discussion.
Stacy, I don't have any number for that, but I guess you'll give me that when it lays out. Resolution approving the granting of local inducements to ICI LLC pursuant to KRS Chapter 154, Subchapter 32. And before I begin reading, I have used the exact format that was approved by the city, so it would be consistent. I think if it works for them, it should work for us. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court finds that it is a legitimate public purpose of said court to undertake activities for the creation of, addition to, or the retention of jobs for residents of this community in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court authorized the granting of a credit of the occupational license fee in an amount up to 0.5% for up to 10 years for any approved company pursuant to the Kentucky Business Investment Program, and in accordance with the tax incentive agreement between the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority and the company. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court finds that offering the local inducements authorized by the KBI program for the purpose of creating and or retaining jobs is in furtherance of the public purposes of said county and will benefit the Scott County Fiscal Court by preserving sources of tax revenue for the public services provided to the citizens of Scott County. And whereas ICI LLC has applied for the benefits authorized by the KBI for its manufacturing plant located at 106 Supply Court, Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky. And whereas the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority has preliminarily approved the application filed by ICI LLC. Now therefore be it resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. Section 1. The Scott County Fiscal Court does hereby approve the granting of inducements to ICI LLC for a project more particularly described in resolution number KBI-1-12-19033 as approved by the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority on May 31st, 2012 pursuant to KRS 154.32-030. Section 2, the Scott County Fiscal Court agrees to forego the collection of 1/2 of the 1% occupational license fee that would otherwise be due it, which shall be retained by ICI LLC for inducements under the KBI program for a term beginning at final approval and ending no later than 10 years from the date of activation. Section 3, that the Scott County Judge Executive is hereby authorized and directed to execute, acknowledge, and deliver on behalf of the Scott County Fiscal Court any and all papers, instruments, certificates, affidavits, and other documents, and to do and/or cause to be done any and all acts and things necessary or proper for the granting of the inducements authorized by the Act and this resolution. Section 4, this resolution and the approval contained therein will only impact the eligible company's occupational wages and will not affect the net profits tax imposed by any local taxing authority, including the Scott County Fiscal Court. In Section 5, this resolution shall become effective upon its passage and approval.
Need a motion to approve it. Parker?
So moved.
Mr. President, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you all so
Thank you.
very much. Appreciate your support.
Okay. Jane, I need you. She's got to be excused for a few minutes. She's got a situation come up. Emergency come up. Okay. Kevin Evans is here with the Kentucky Growers Association about renewing their lease.
Yes, we'd just like to basically renew the present lease we have with the fiscal court. Give you a little background, because some people new or different hadn't been with us. We've been leasing some area, 2.5 acres approximately, behind the county fire department up on 25, on the north 25. And been doing that since 1998, I think. We're 16 years in. So we'd like just to renew that from what we've been doing. We're not positive how much longer we'll be in business. We're running out of vegetable growers, and we're looking to remodel our business plan a little bit, and hopefully that'll work out, and we'll be able to recruit some more younger people to kind of take care of things. So, but presently we're still operating, and just not on as big a scale as we have been.
Glenn, you want to explain the parts of the lease?
Yes, sir. Back in 1998, March 23rd to be exact, the fiscal court entered into its initial lease agreement for a 10-year term. And Kevin's right, it's 2.557 acres there off Cincinnati Road, for the purpose of the Growers Association to have a location to build improvements and operate from that area. The initial term being 10 years, but the initial lease has a section where the lease can be renewed, option to renew for 5-year periods at each interval. We are at a point now where that last 5-year renewal was up actually yesterday, according to my records anyway. So it's a $1 per year. The lease goes on to indicate that the Growers Association basically take care of everything there. Should the lease, or should Growers Association cease to function or the lease be terminated with no other organization, then I think paragraph 14 in the original lease indicates that the improvements would stay with the property and would become county's.
Question.
That was renewed back in February 13th, 2009 for this last 5-year term.
Question, do they have the power to sublease?
Let me look, John.
I don't think so.
there is a restriction where they'll operate the premises as the Central Kentucky Growers Association Incorporated, performing services associated with that. Use of the premises for any other purpose without the written approval of lessor is prohibited.
Kevin, how many growers do you currently have?
Currently, we've got probably somewhere between 4 and 5 for this year.
Then the other thing is the Growers Association has to provide the insurance for the building.
For the building.
In the full amount of the value of the building.
I'm not definitely sure, more liability things than.
Is it, but do we have, I guess,
The insurance clause says that the Growers Association be responsible for carrying public liability insurance coverage. Any injury may occur to invitees, licensees, any other persons lawfully own the business. Lessee shall also be responsible for carrying fire and extended coverage for the improvements.
I'll have to check and make sure we're covering that.
yeah.
It doesn't just pertain to Scott County, it's surrounding areas also to participate in this one. It looks like maybe there would be some type of way to advertise to get more growers. I don't do that, I'm a farmer, but I'm not into vegetable growing and whatnot, but a lot of people are, and don't know what it would take to get more people interested. This seems like 4 or 5. I don't know.
No, it's not anywhere near what it needs. I mean, we've kind of changed the basic plan. Used to, it was just strictly 2 or 3 crops, and now we're kind of cross-docking and putting more together with this incentive to be local. Last couple of years, we've had, some lucrative contracts with Kroger's and some of the local places. And we see that's the direction we're kind of headed in if we're going to survive and, make it work. So that's kind of where that's where we're headed with that. And it's, the hardest thing is when corn and soybeans, some of those things, other field crops are really good, and tobacco, it makes it harder to attract new growers.
Kevin, would it be a terrible inconvenience to make it a 4-year contract? And the reason I ask that, if we make it a 5-year contract right now, the next sitting fiscal court would not have any, you see what I'm saying? They wouldn't have any time in which to vote on it. So it would go through an entire cycle. I mean, if that's, you see that?
That's not a problem with us. I mean, we just, that way we know, we need to, where we got continuity, we know what's going on. So as long as we know it, it's up front there.
I'm just trying to make sure that the next sitting court has an opportunity to hear from the Growers Association as well.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and-
It's not, I don't know.
Your lease has a terminology, that indicates you can amend it, make modifications, just as long as it's signed by both parties.
And the only reason, I just want to make sure that the next sitting court has an opportunity to hear from you guys. If you would just a little bit tell the court about, you did try to reach out, I think, to another company, or a company had talked to you all, and it didn't work out, but there was some.
Yeah, the problem, tried to a local juicery business, and they were expanding in the Louisville and Lexington area, and they needed a facility to process. And it would have been a good opportunity for us to supply them with most all the vegetables and things they were doing. It was going to be a process because they really wanted organic. But we needed to make some modifications to the building, some additions, and they were going to upfront some of those costs, but the biggest problem was we didn't have a long enough term lease to guarantee them that they could recover recoup some of their money. So at this time, they pretty well decided to move to Louisville. We thought we had that pretty well worked out, and we were getting close, but I think the banks in the state that was going to loan them some money, really wanted a longer term type deal locked in. We weren't able to get all our ducks in order and take care of that.
Any other questions or concerns?
Kevin, you mentioned that over time with fewer folks growing these crops, that usage has dropped. How many growers are using the facility now?
We got 4 or 5 that are using it right now.
Okay, and do you think it's possible for us to rebuild those numbers?
I think if we work a deal and get a deal with Kroger's and get that locked in, I think we can, because it'll be smaller amounts of things.
Mhm.
And we'll be cross-docking a lot of stuff. We're working with the area out of Richmond, and we think we can combine the two, and as far as trucking and those type of things, which is the expensive part. So if we can get those to work out, then I think it'll inch back up, but I'm not positive. You know, that's what we're hoping for. As far as the improvements for you fellows, if we do walk away, we've got 2 buildings there of 65 by 120, and the other one's a 70 by 140, and they've got loading docks, and you know, it's concreted and everything else. So there's a mass amount of improvements to the land that hopefully will be back to you one day.
I guess the only remaining question I have is I just would encourage you guys to reach out and try to bring some more folks in, because it becomes difficult to lease a facility for $1.
I agree.
To a few number of growers, but hopefully you can reach out and find some growers for these crops, and to make it an outreach program. I think that's the important part of this whole thing.
Are there any local incentives for farmers to participate in it?
No, it's more geared toward the restaurants and groceries to, through the Kentucky Proud program, they get a kickback or incentive to buy our product. But when you get to a certain level, that stops. But other than that, that's about the only one.
No subsidy programs or anything like that it's going for?
No, there's some new farmer type grants out there, but the startups, it's kind of tough.
Steve, do you have a question?
So I have a comment to make.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, actually, I have a question. Did you say, Mr. Evans, that I think I heard you say that the success when the big field crops, corn and soybeans, are going well, then it's hard to get vegetable producers? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And didn't you just say it's important to get vegetable producers?
Yes, I did.
All right. You approved Bevin's application for bigger tractor service, bigger tractor sales, which means bigger fields, which means fewer growers and fewer people commanding the countryside to produce crops. And a whole lot of that crop is ethanol corn to run the tractor. And by approving the Bevin's application, you have helped to mechanize crop production in this county. And there's a lawsuit pending to stop the Bevin's application, and it's in your interest to get the big tractors, to not let the big tractors come into this county, so that corn and half the crop is spent, maybe not half, but a lot of the corn goes to make the fuel for the tractor. And so the only man that's farming, or those only people that are farming, are those few that can afford the tractors and are willing to sit all day on the tractor. Personally, I would never climb on a tractor again. I had one for a while. I wish I'd never seen it, because I don't move, and nobody moves, and people are physically degenerating because of these big tractors and shutting out the small guys that he's talking about. And you yourself said that are needed.
Thank you, Steve. Do you have a motion?
I had another question.
Oh.
How's the management association, the 4 to 5 growers that are participating, do they serve as a board to oversee the operations now? I mean,
Yes.
they do
They vary. We've got 3 from Scott County, 1 from Harrison, and 1 from Clark County.
Now, I would like to see more periodic updates for us about what's going on, how things are progressing, rather than wait till the lease is up at the end of 5 years or 4 years, whatever.
Yearly report.
Yeah, that would be great. I know I hate to have to ask y'all to do
I'd put
something
that in
else,
here.
but it would be beneficial.
Kevin, is there enough support from the 4 or 5 growers that you have to supply the clients what they need, and it would be an overstock of vegetables and whatnot? Is there a problem with that area?
Not really. I mean, we could always use more. because, you know, through the years, you know, when you're experimenting, growing different things, it's usually a big farmer that's experimenting, you know, trying to see if it works in his system. And you get to where you can, you know, like I feel like I grow tomatoes decent, or peppers, or different things, and then that's you kind of focus. But other growers do different things and they can grow good. So, you know, there's always room for additional people.
But there has to be some control to keep the prices right to entice farmers to grow this. And
Yeah.
if there's too much, the price goes down, then they want to get out.
Yeah, and we do that occasionally.
Stuart,
Just
you-
one note of clarification, the farm that I operate with my daughter and son-in-law, Triple J Farm, is not currently a member of the vegetable co-op, so I have no conflict. And I would make a motion to renew it for 4 years with annual updates to the fiscal court.
Second. Any further discussion? Glenn, look like you got a comment.
I'm going to meet with Kevin just for a second.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Afterward, or-
No, I just need a couple of pieces of information, so, for the new leases. I can do that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you, Kevin. Steve, you wanted to appear before the court?
That's a vibrate against it.
Okay.
Well, thank you for letting me address the fiscal court. I'm Stephen Price. I live here in Georgetown, and I noticed Scott County Road Department throwing on lots of salt on the roads in the past, all this hard weather we've had in the last several months. KRS 150, Chapter 150.1. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't have it with me. I handed a copy to your office the other day, Judge. I believe I did, Judge Lesby. I think I showed it to you. KRS chapter on wildlife protection prohibits anybody from putting any substance on the ground that goes into the ground, into a public water, that would interfere with or degrade the quality of wildlife and the habitat for wildlife. And you can walk right down here, down the hill here during any rainstorm and see the water rushing down West Main Street going straight into the town branch. And that's true of every high spot in the county. You put salt, if you put salt here on Main Street, it's gonna wash straight down into that branch of water. You put salt on any ridge, anywhere in Scott County, the rain's are gonna wash it to the nearest stream or carry it into the groundwater and into the water table. And salination of our fresh water is not good. Our frogs, fish, plants, salamanders. There's a big group of salamanders down here on this behind the old jail, which is a good sign. And so you putting Mr. Brandenburg and his men out there putting that salt on the ground on the roads it's punishable under KRS 150. I'm not sure. I will get the paper. I'm sorry I don't have it with me. I was late. I meant to bring it and copy it, give you copies, but I will bring them to your office. It's subject to a $500 fine and imprisonment. Anybody who allows salt or puts a noxious substance to go into a public waterway, and I assume that would be you and you. For doing it. And so you say, well, what are we going to do? We got to have cars, got to have transport in the wintertime. And I say to you, no, we don't. People can walk during the wintertime and plan on staying home instead of put all this salt on the ground. Plan on staying home, plan on not traveling when snow falls and ice make it hazardous. And you say, oh, well, that'll reduce auto sales. Well, when people are staying home, they won't, if they're going to stay home more, they won't need the automobile. And maybe if they stay home long enough and learn to do something at home productive, they won't need an automobile ever again, because they won't need to drive to Kroger to buy what they consume. So and there was a big gasoline spill last on January 30th in Somerset. Big 8,000 gallons of petrol fuel on the ground in a cave. Cave is a tourist destination, a outing destination, wildlife habitat. Cave is damaged by a petrol fuel spill. We had a similar situation here a few years ago, a big spill over here by Weisenberger Mill. The petroleum fuel came out in a big spring. And I wrote Mayor Varney a letter, I wish I'll give you a copy of it. It said, if the local government is, not to mention mufflers, every third car in Scott County has no muffler on it. That's against the law. It's against KRS 189.140. It's against KRS 22430-165. You cannot run any machine in the state of Kentucky, including automotives, motor vehicles, without a working muffler. It's not being enforced. The sheriff, I've talked to the sheriffs, they're not enforcing it. Talked to Georgetown Police, they're not enforcing it. If local government cannot cope with these negative impacts of motor transport, and I'm talking about salination of the water, I'm talking about pollution of the water with petrol fuel, I'm talking about noise pollution, which is in violation of state law. If your local government can't cope with it, and the city's local government can't cope with the damaging impacts of motor transport, then it seems to me the answer is pedestrianism. Scale back on motor transport, which would put Mr. Jack Connor and his robots out of business, I guess. Or maybe into some other business. I've said to Toyota, I ran for town council, and I've said to Toyota in my publicity, agrarianize your operation. And Toyota has a big garden out there, and at times I read about it in the paper, I don't know if it's still there, but they could expand on that horticulture work they do out there to the displacement gradually of automotive manufacturing. And I'm saying that your public policy should support that, you should consider that, and I'll say finally, and sit down, the Kentucky Department of Transportation sponsored last month a conference in their building in Frankfort. Lectures were held, workshops were held under the title, The Walkable City. And a man that wrote a book by that name was there to lead this conference on the walkable city, sponsored by none other than the people that have been trying to put us on wheels for generations. That's the Kentucky Department of Transportation. And I will get you a copy of a news article about that conference.
Thank you, Steve. Next item on the agenda is request for 2 people at the animal shelter to go to Nashville, Tennessee for training academy. This is required training if they're going to be animal control officers. Letha Burton and Ryan Case. Need a motion to approve that that they be allowed to do that. Lyons? Who seconded it? You got it? All in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. The interlocal committee met with the city a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, and we have copies of 2 of the interlocal agreements that were agreed on by a majority of the committee. One member from the city voted against, not the Revenue Commission, but the Animal Control, and we need to approve the interlocal agreement if you agree to that. The Revenue Commission was changed just a little, and the only thing that was changed in it that I can recall, when the Revenue Commission started, it was housed at the city, and there was some language about paying rent and so forth. Well, of course, it's moved out. That was taken out. Everything else is exactly the same, I believe. David, Tom, or Stuart, and that y'all's understanding?
Yes.
And so that's, we need first to vote on approving the interlocal agreement with the Revenue Commission, and that, of course, will have to be signed by, approved by the city also. And need a motion to that effect on the Revenue Commission interlocal agreement. Mr. Livingston, Mr. Hughes?
I have a question. The documents that you gave us, are they the same as the ones that Stacy emailed us?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further?
I do have one other,
Yeah.
and this will need to be addressed going forward in the future, but it was curious that the expense sharing is 40-40-20,
Mhm.
with the city and the county 40 and the school district 20. And I'm not sure if that's fair, because if you go back and look at the amount of tax dollars that are actually collected and the same amount of work done by the people, that we may not need to address it now, but in the future, go back and look at that arrangement of how that's working.
There is a commission, and they have a board, which the board is made up of the judge, the mayor, and the school superintendent, and that's how it was agreed on. We get 1%, city gets 1%, school board gets a 0.5%. Whether that's fair or not, that was what was agreed on, but that can be addressed at any time. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. The second one is the animal control agreement. You have copies of that, and it is the same one that you've got copies of that is in front of you. Any questions on that? If not, need a motion to approve the animal control. Mr. Hughes? Mr. Hoffman? Any questions? All in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. And that's the way we're operating it right now, and have been for the past so many years. Michael, you're next.
Good morning, Your Honor. Members of the Fiscal Court. I am Michael Humphrey. I'm the captain, the operations manager of the Scott County Detention Center. In brief, at the present time, we've got 83 people lodged in the facility, which is good because our capacity, as you know, was 86. It was a little higher during the week, but we've gotten some people out on bonds, et cetera. The overall booking for last year, calendar year 2013, we were up 318 from the previous year in terms of bookends itself. Right now, I think we're down. Last month, we were short 4, so they didn't bring us in one more person per week. I don't know if that was due to weather, et cetera. Because I know when I was a patrol unit, I didn't like taking people into jail in the cold simply due to the fact that it was just pain in the tush to move around. For regular business, if the court will allow, I'll take care of my operational notes before administrative notes. Operational notes are staffing. Deputy Richard Ledoux resigned. He was making $11.91 an hour. We'd like to replace him with Deputy Jared Flaherty, who is a part-time unit. He's been there for about, I want to say 9 months. He'll replace Richard. His starting pay will be $10.92 an hour. We're also asking to hire on an additional part-time member, Deputy Matt Holland. He'll be making $10.25 an hour. Any questions on staffing?
Did we approve the Holland at last meeting?
I can't remember. Did we approve him at the last, Matt Holland at the last meeting?
They may have. I guess I just had a note. I don't know if they did that.
We did. Jane said we did, so.
Okay, then we're good.
Of course, if he's
already-
Deputy Matt Holland, I'm assuming he's already working.
Well, I call him deputy runs for what?
Okay.
But anyways,
Is he already working?
yes, he is. Well, he's been a
Okay.
part, he was a part-time officer.
Okay.
So,
Well, he was already approved.
Yeah.
Okay, don't have to prove him again.
there you go.
We need a motion to approve Jared Flaherty. How do you pronounce it? Flaherty?
Flaherty. That's right.
Flaherty. Mr. Lyons, Mr. Parker. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Regarding administrative notes, we're bringing in our security camera bids. Take it, counsel, did you receive the last copy of the?
Michael, there are
contract?
five paragraphs, subparagraphs that still need just a little
Okay.
work, and I'll make those changes, we get them too. A couple of them are very minor things. You had correctly placed in one of those subparagraphs and some of the cleanup and things need to be done daily, and I thought that has been modified, but in the final version, that was not included. Just some things like that. So I've got 5 areas that I've got to get you some terminology, and we'll send that over hopefully this
All right,
evening.
and I respectfully request that this body approve the contract after council reviews. And we'll let the judge sign off and jailer sign off when we get the work started. My goal is probably try to get the contracting completed by next week, and hopefully get the work started sometime the last week of February. And then we'll be complete, hopefully, with everything done by March 31. That is our current goal. And one of the things that Mr. Gish had advised us was that we needed to discuss disposal of the old security camera system and materials, including some of the wiring, copper wiring, et cetera. Sometimes, the people already own that, so a lot of the copper wiring, of course, if worse comes to worse, we can possibly either recycle or resell. And so if we can work with that, that'll offset even a little bit more cost. So, because I don't know what copper wiring goes. If you're here, everybody steals copper wiring. We've got it there. Like I said, it's going to be old. It's going to be removed. But maybe the county could go ahead and get something.
Who's gonna renew it, Michael?
Well, we haven't
you
decided.
take it out.
Well, the contracted company will be taking it out.
It'll belong to the
What we'll do
county.
is it belongs to the county, yeah, we own it, so, you know.
I guess we'll have to deal with that when we
Right, I
get
was
to it.
thinking, my goal was to try to take it out to the road department on truck, and then we'll figure out exactly where we need to take it in Lexington or wherever, recycle it, but that way the county will at least get something reimbursed for something for it.
Okay, we'll deal with that when the time comes.
And, that's all that I have.
Hold it, I want to ask Glenn, can we approve the contract subject to your, and that way you can move forward? Michael, what I asked Glenn, we can make a motion to, subject to Glenn's approval, for me to sign the contract, and that'll,
Out of the court, you all choose to do it,
It-
fine, huh?
if court, so,
We've already accepted the bid, haven't
be it, yeah, but we gotta sign, gotta authorize me to sign the contract, subject to approval of Glenn, and that way we can move forward with. Is there a motion to that effect? Okay. Mr. Parker, any questions? All in favor? Okay, we can go ahead, that's
Right.
unanimous.
Sounds good. I've also, I guess you all received the physical inventory and surplus report. I've got a couple of those. I think I gave attachments to the magistrates. Just want to request that those items that we've got listed be surplused as necessary.
Question, I thought, why are we getting rid of all those flat screen TVs?
Well, they've been replaced. I think we've replaced most of those. I've got two of them. I think two of them were damaged. If memory serves, they got wet, and we had to replace them. The other, not all of them were flat screen. Some of them, the older big models, that were replaced. This was done a while back. We've just got them sitting around, so we're trying to make space.
Two, okay, yeah, just two are really flat screen.
Right. Yeah, two.
And they're probably the ones that were damaged.
They were damaged in by water.
Okay.
I have a question on that, excuse me, Judge. It says dispose, and it states there they're either for the road crew or the Class D road crew for disposal or surplus, and I'm not sure which is which there.
Okay, well, if they're working, if you wanna try to sell them, we'd have no problem with that. Like I said,
If they're surplus and they have some value, we should have them.
If they're big tube TVs, you won't even get $20 out of them.
But if they're disposal.
Or $5, yeah. Can't even give them away.
I like it, and that's why we just, like I said, we're just wanting to make the space, and so go with however you all wanna handle that. Like I said, if you wanna sell them, sell them. If you wanna junk them, you can junk them.
Well, we need a motion to surplus them, and that's
Make a
David.
motion.
And so, all in favor? And I think you're right, you might have to pay somebody to haul them off, but
That's
we
all I
declare
have.
them surplus, and where are they now?
I believe some of them have already been taken, have they not? No, do you all already have them down? We don't have them down. Okay, then we've got them they're probably on the canteen room, second floor.
Where,
Second floor in the
and
old
it says
canteen room.
that you're gonna move them, JR, we got a place to put them? Then we can decide then to junk them or whatever.
That answers my question.
Yeah. Okay. So make sure that it's handled through JR.
We will do it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I have one more question, which I
Okay.
asked you before.
Okay.
The court hired Carla Cannon to be chief deputy.
Correct.
And it was my understanding that she was on a salary.
That was my understanding as well. Your Honor.
But when they turned the timesheets in, it was hourly. And we went ahead, she had some overtime, and we paid that because that's the way the timesheet was turned in.
Right.
That needs to be clarified.
Right, and I will get that.
And I was
clarification.
pretty confident, and I think the court was too, it was a salaried position because of her position.
That was my understanding too,
41,000 a
Your
year,
Honor.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll have to get that clarified with
Yeah.
her and with the judge.
And in fact of the matter, that was what was presented and what was voted on,
Right.
I believe. and,
Yeah,
uh,
the salary,
what we
the
approved,
salary
yeah.
was put
Yeah,
out there.
so
Yeah.
that,
41,000, I believe.
yeah,
It's the same
that,
amount.
that was, and that needs to, before the next timesheet, that needs to be corrected.
I'll have that rectified by this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
We have Mr. David Rice here, who's the curator, I guess is the right term, for the museum, and a lot going on. And David, if you wanted to make any comments on the museum.
Oh, I wasn't really expecting this, but that's fine. I think I've met most, but if not, I'm David Rice, the museum director. And we've got lots of big plans. I certainly do. I'm very energetic and love to get problems solved and fix things up. And so I'm really looking forward to being there for many years, hopefully, to just really turn that museum into a great tourist attraction here for downtown. I'm originally from Paintsville in eastern Kentucky and was a history teacher there for 30 years at the high school level. So I think I know a little bit about history. But when it comes to the museum, I just look at the museum as being so important to downtown. You know, you've got the Arts Center on one side, the museum on the other. It's almost like downtown is almost like a shopping mall. You got your two big anchor stores at either end, and then all your businesses, all your restaurants and a lot of antique shops and everything in between. And so I'm really looking at the museum that way, as if it really needs to be a big anchor tourist attraction. I've been very busy here lately. I'm honest to a fault, and I guess it's taken a little time for myself and the board to get to know each other and sort of trust each other. But it seems like recently everything's going great. We're getting along great. I'm getting a lot of things done. We've got had some problems here in the past, but I've fixed all these in terms of a Facebook page, and I'm working on a web page, and just all kinds of things. We've got a great relationship with tourism, and a lot of connections there in the Main Street. I've really been working, I guess, behind the scenes a little bit, trying to get all this set up, and it seems like just lately everything's starting to come together. And so I really have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of high hopes that, we're really going to turn that into something that everybody's going to be very, very proud of. And I know we've got lots of maybe some improvements coming here in the future. And I don't know, I just think it'll all be come together and will be great. I'm a positive person. I like positive energy. So I plan on trying to show up at a lot of the meetings. And if you ever have a question for me or want to know anything, or if you've got any comments or questions for me, then I'm wanting to make myself available, and so we can all have a good relationship.
I think the community needs to know how fortunate we are to have some of the Troys that we have. And if you could elaborate on that, it'd be worth them to come and look at them. I mean, they are pieces of treasure.
One of the goals of the museum board is to, acquire, I guess, as many artifacts as is possible financially or whatever. Yes, we have some very rare paintings and we've got some books that illustrate a lot of these paintings, and we either have some of them or the books will show them. For some of our great artists, There's lots of other things that we're trying to acquire. Probably the most recent acquisition that we made was a sword from the Mexican-American War of 1846-47. There was apparently there was a Scott Countyan who was a private, I can't remember his name offhand. In that Mexican-American War, there was a lot of times an honorary sword would be given to usually an officer. Apparently in the whole war, this gentleman from Scott County was the only private that received an honorary sword for his acts of bravery in that war. In fact, in the last battle that he was in, he actually lost a hand in his fierce fighting and so on. But we were able to acquire that sword, and we're getting ready to make a nice display concerning that war and to display that sword. So we're always active looking for items that are important to the history of Scott County, and that we want to keep those and display them for everybody to enjoy, for education, and get the schools involved. And so we're really looking forward to doing things like that.
Any other questions for David? Thank you, David.
Okay, I better run down and open up.
I want to bring the court up to date on where we are on this. The plans for both the HVAC and the heating and for the lighting are completed, and they have to go to the housing department at Frankfurt. And we know what happened when we sent the ones for the show barn. That takes a lot of time. That they have 45 days to review them, and then if there's changes, they've got, I believe, 30 days, and then if there's more changes. And what we did on the show barn, we bid it out and then had to wait and wait and wait. So we're going to take the plans to Frankfurt first and then bid it out later. And the estimated cost, it's over $100,000 for the lighting and the same for the HVAC. But this is something that would last probably, well, if it lasts as long as it has before, you're talking plus 75 years. So even though it seems like a lot of money, it's improvements that would last. And if we don't do these improvements, we're probably going to have to shut the place down. It's, they're working now. Last year, I believe it was, when I was on vacation, I got a call from a person to fix the air conditioning, and he said, I can fix it, but it may not last till I get out of the building. And so we've got to do it. And the place is heated with hot water. The boiler's working good. The problem is, because of the age of the pipes and things, they're deteriorating. So it's got to be fixed. And it's going to, it's a one-time cost, but it is that up in that figure. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do right now. The fire exits, lights, and fire alarm system doesn't even work. And we've got a contract here that I'm going to ask you to approve to come in, put in a new system, fire alarm system, and the lights and the pull stations and the phone connection. And if you approve this, then this can go ahead and be done. The total cost for the material and labor is $4,776. And they can go ahead with that, and David, that won't interfere with any of your operation.
I might mention, in terms of the heating system, just yesterday, JR knows, because he was down there, we had two of the old radiator systems sprung a leak. And we had to make some phone calls and get some people in and they had to correct the situation. So we should be good at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. Yeah.
We, through experience at our church, master boiler makers are expensive. But they're demanded when you have to work on the
This
system.
new system won't be a boiler system. It'll be the modern type of heat pumps and so forth. But that's down the road. But I would like permission to sign this contract to replace the alarm systems that we have there.
So moved.
Mr. Parker seconds it. Any questions on that? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Then the second thing that can be done now that will save us money on the bid, but it's still gonna cost money, is to replace the panel boxes. Isn't that what they're called, JR? Electrical services, and we can purchase the equipment. We buy that and won't have to pay taxes on it. And then to get an electrician to come up and do that service work. And I need approval to move ahead with that. That has to be done if we never do anything else. Some of the panels are the original, so, you know, where you put a penny behind the fuse box.
Can you display those in the museum?
But that building has not had any major work on it probably in a half a century.
Every bit.
Finished in November of 1915.
1950.
We're almost to its 100th anniversary.
And some of these, at least one of these panel boxes is the original. So,
Judge, I'll make a motion.
okay, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Parker, second. All in favor? Okay. One thing I want to say, thank you, that was unanimous. People sometimes don't realize how important a person we've got working for us, and that's JR. He's monitoring and taking care of all of this. Same thing is true on the show barn. And in the meantime, they're pushing a little snow and so forth. So we are truly blessed with not only the hard work, but the skill and the knowledge that he has to do this. And we appreciate that.
Question, Judge, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure for clarification. The county owns the museum building itself.
That is correct. We got it at a bargain, but, you know, we bought it from the post office back several years ago. And I might add, it's the Georgetown Scott County Museum, but
Just ask a question.
Scott County
We
is
pay.
paying 100% of everything.
It also houses state.
And it also houses the sheriff's office
I could take
upstairs.
that farther, but I won't.
So we're, did we vote on that? Okay, any questions or comments? And I guess that's all I have on the agenda. Go right ahead.
You talked about a heat pump going in up there at the post office, I mean, at the museum. You mentioned heat pump, right?
Yes.
Heat pumps make a lot of noise.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything? Mr. Hughes?
Nothing.
One thing, Judge, and I brought it up, we talked about it not too long ago. When I parked my vehicle in the city parking lot this morning, that parking lot is a mess. I mean, the blacktop is all new pieces done and whatnot, and we use that for collection point of all the people in Scott County. And when you're off interlope or whatnot, if you could bring it up to the city, maybe a joint venture to get something done to that parking lot.
I mentioned that several years ago, and they have not
Responded.
I think it's
responded. Yeah.
It's in bad shape.
It's been mentioned. Mr. Livingston, everything for the good order.
I was going to say on with JR also his communication, because I know he's had to talk to the press and be interviewed on camera and stuff. So he's done well, especially when he's getting beat up about salt and all that. He's been very gentlemanly about it. So probably more so than I would be. But so thank you for that.
You might mention too that they don't always present the good side. It's
right,
about run out and all
right,
that.
yeah. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is I know that you met with Payroll Solutions about, and what I found out is the person that actually handles public entities, governmental, is not the one that came. She wasn't. The one that came wasn't the one that was supposed to come.
Well, that's the
She's
one they
not
sent.
But no, well, no.
I didn't.
I don't think. I think there was a miscommunication on who was supposed to come, is what I'm getting. Because, but what I would like to see is if we could have maybe 2 or 3 of us to sit down and talk with them, so that we completely understand why it will or won't work. going forward.
Let's say miscommunications. It wasn't on my part.
No, it wasn't on your part.
Yeah.
No, it was not. It wasn't on your part.
Okay.
So is that a no?
That's
Or
not a
yes?
no,
Oh,
it's just a,
okay.
okay. That's an administrative decision.
I understand. I'm just
Okay.
making a request.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prather.
One thing I'll add about JR being on TV, when they do those zoom in face shots on your big screen TV, JR looks very big. But yeah, the winter that won't end keeps coming at us in waves, and it's got to have folks worn out. So keep the faith. Mr. Parker helped remind me that Georgetown Community Hospital is sponsoring I think a pretty important event having to do with women's heart healthy activities. It's a free event at Wilshire's on February the 27th. They're going to have booths, medical guest speakers, ranging from cardiologists to dietitians, physical therapists, cardiac nurses. It's free to the public. So there's also a red wine tasting if that gets anybody's attention. Good for the heart. So just want to mention that on behalf of the hospital. Thank you.
JR, it's fair to say we got salt, right? We have salt, so, any rumors are out there, don't believe them. That's it.
I just have a couple of things, and I meant to do this first one before Jack and them left, but I wanted to publicly thank Jack for the economic development report and updates that we get from him. They're very informative, and I appreciate that. And then to fall back on what Mr. Prather had commented about the Georgetown Hospital and the Heart Healthy event coming up. We're fortunate here in Georgetown, in my opinion, to have the best cardiac rehab and maintenance department in the state of Kentucky. And along those lines, if you check in the Georgetown News graphic, you'll see some upcoming events that help support the American Heart Association. And I'd like to encourage everyone to get involved and see what we can do to help those folks. Thank you, sir.
Lynn?
Nothing on.
Stacy?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Anybody? Being no further